Okay. All right. So, Catherine, how are you doing?
I'm okay. I've had a kind of a challenging week, so I'm going to admit to you that I just came out of 3 days of super intense uh, crisis management. So
Gotcha.
I'm in a headspace where I finally this morning sat down and looked at this stuff, but I'm going to admit to you that it kind of went off the radar for the last 3 days.
Totally understandable. That's what happens a lot, especially when you get thrust back into the real world after doing a big course with the TIPA and PAC. It's sort of like everything is swimmingly beautiful, and then you go back to real life. So I totally get it.
I had my first TIPA mare just before I woke up this morning.
Uh-oh.
I used to, nightmares when I was doing show business. I called them show mares when everything
Yep.
goes wrong. I had a TIPA mare just now before I woke up, my first one. So I think that means I'm in it for good, and I'm really in now that I had a TIPA mare where she was doing something and I was supposed to be there, and then I didn't, and then I showed up, and then she was flopping on the floor, and I thought she was hurt. She was doing some acrobatic things, like, oh my God. Anyway.
All by yourself, and you were supposed to be a part of it.
Yeah, it was a TIPA mare.
I understand. That's pretty scary. I would definitely wake up in a cold sweat on that one.
Anyway.
Well, you're in it for good now. You can't get out of it, huh?
Yeah, it's in my deep brain.
So I know it sounds like you've been extremely busy and not able to focus so much on this skill. However, working in crisis management, were you finding any thoughts about this whole cycle while you were doing all that?
Yes, quite a bit. And that's the thing is actually I should say I actually did have it in my mind because it was a situation where the family converged in the home and it was crisis with the family. And I became the go-to person sort of trying to help them.
The fixer, yeah.
Yeah, trying to make sure that everybody became the glue, the
Gotcha.
in-betweener who kind of, I was having private moments with this family member, yes, I understand, and this family member who wasn't on board with, and then it all, over the last 3 days, it's all taken shape. Not to mention being the primary care partner for someone who was in crisis.
Right, so you were already involved, but then you got more deeply involved with the external, the people, right?
Yes, the stakeholders were coming in and changes were trying to be made. I didn't see it that way now that you did this. This was happening a lot.
And
a lot
so
of changes were happening here.
And so who became your focus? It sounds like you had to move a little bit from your person into the stakeholders each of them becoming sort of your cycle people.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of discussion about, it was kind of like, I said, let me reach out to someone I know who has resources that we'd already discussed a long time ago. So then I got the resource person, and then we all sort of waited and talked about the options for the different resources, and got the ball rolling and making choices about which one would be better. And it was, making the decisions and bringing in what I understand too, because I'm bringing a lot of awareness and knowledge to the table
about this person who maybe
about
they may not.
What they're living with and why they might be seeing shifts. Like I was able to say, we're looking at primitive brain changes now, and explaining the thinking brain, and that's what we've been seeing. But I think what we're seeing now is primitive brain change, and it's not something, they're talking about medicine or not, or treating and not treating and all this, and getting what kind of care to get, and, additional supportive care, medical care for comfort care.
Right.
So I was able to do that. And I do, the one skill that I'm always working on in my personal as well as my professional life, I did notice myself when, a little conversation came up in the kitchen with the daughter, and I just very subtly, consciously PPA'd, and I sort of went like this while she was talking, and I put my hand on my mouth, because that's my key to myself to shut up.
Yep, I gotcha.
I have to do this. I noticed that Teepa and you do it too, but I actually have physically found that if I just go like this.
It's your little reminder. And were you able to kind of do that then reflective piece where you're only saying the words that she's saying, or is that the piece you're still working on?
I don't know that I did that exactly because I wasn't really consciously going like, oh, here's a place to practice. I think it was kind of organic in some ways, but I was aware of pieces of it.
Cool.
I don't think I did the reflect. I mean, I might have said because I agree with a lot of what she's saying. I agree personally with the approach that the daughter wants to take.
Nice. So you felt like it was
I try to remain supportive. I think that sounds right, and
Cool. Yeah. Okay. So you've identified, it sounds like, at least one person, but probably more, where you're finding a direct use for this consulting piece that you've just started to gain.
Yeah.
When you looked at your, do you have your little cards and things so that I can refer to them? Of course you do, right?
I would not be a very good mentor if I didn't know that I should have these handy.
You would be a just fine mentor, but you may not be a very independent learner at that point. But hey, that's how it goes.
Fair enough.
Okay, so on this one where you sort of marked your two positives and your one area for growth, let's start with the characteristics, because it sounds like you're very reflective and you're really thinking through sort of where am I, how's it going. Where did you say your two strengths were, and did that play out when you ended up in this sort of more responsive, right? This was not a proactive cycle. This was a responsive to a crisis. Did you find, what were your two strengths, and how did you feel about them after you did it?
Here's what I identified. Is my willingness to make mistakes, admit them, and learn from them. I do that all the time. I have no problem saying, I'm really sorry I made a mistake, or I shouldn't have done that. I have no problem doing that, or even if it's not something totally egregious, if it's like, maybe that was a misstep, or maybe I could have done something a little differently. I have no problem doing that. Authentically apologize. I can authentically apologize. I really do believe, and I wrote on the side, I believe in the effectiveness of I'm sorry.
And how were you able to sort of identify these two? Did you notice yourself doing these two skills?
I've had this come up recently in some situations in my professional care partnering, and not just with my care partner, with some other folks that I deal with in the environment I made some errors in judgment, and I shouldn't have said things I said, or it wasn't perceived in the way I intended.
And how do you recognize that? Because it sounds like you're
feedback.
Verbal or visual that they give you, or both?
Both, a little both. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so those still feel like two of your strongest pieces, even after you marked them in the class, and then
I did. I just marked them from whatever had happened that day and from what was current.
And on that side, then, what was the one that you felt like you wanted as your first focus to work to improve a little bit?
It's the first one. Is stay curious about the facts and the people, because I think this is just my natural tendency is to go is to like have one ear listening or 3/4 listening, and then the rest is devoted to problem solving already in my brain. And I kind of go really fast to I think I know what might be the answer or the fix. And there's like a shift in my brain that I've worked before, and actually I need to harness my experience as somebody in improvisation and improv in my background, which is when you just say, I'm here in this moment, I have no idea what's going to happen. And
right?
Yes, and it's the yes and yes and just keep this open and here. I can do it, but I have to be conscious before I begin.
So you're working to be more conscious in the moment, before, to kind of set yourself up to stay curious, because you get to that point where you start to hear things that make sense or that don't. And
Right.
that's when you want to go into, okay, let's fix it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's like a mindset of like tease out the story. If I think of it that way, it's like
Oh,
I started thinking about this this morning when I was getting in my head for this call. Is that I think there's something about me that needs that moment before, if I can arrange it, but I take 5 minutes to like breathe, to go in, to take time inside here saying, clear the cobwebs, remind myself to be in the moment, remind myself to be curious, also to trust that my PPA skills, I feel pretty good about them. So I don't need to worry so much about focusing on PPA, because then that gets me in a different place. Not that I don't, let it organically happen, trust myself.
So taking a little bit of the focus off of PPA, now that you feel like that skill is something that is coming pretty naturally, you don't need to think through it as much. Those steps are actually, you find that you're doing it without maybe even realizing it, which is great. Now you want to take one step back and say, okay, how do I, once I'm in that moment in an intimate conversation or a really tough place with someone, how do I stay curious and not want to help in that moment and help them fix it? Because I do have a lot of experience and background that could help this situation, but I don't know enough. Usually when I start trying to help, it may be a little bit too soon still. I need more of the story.
Yeah, more of the story.
Okay, so that gives us a good place.
It's trust too.
Yeah, it's trusting
that
that
it'll organically find its way through the cycle. If I stay in a support,
that curious support place, and not just assuming. And that's so hard, right? To not just assume that there is a right answer. Because when we get into that right and wrong, that's when it gets really tricky, because is there really a right or wrong in any given situation?
And each person and circumstance is different. What's right for one is not right for the other. You know, where are you coming in emotionally?
Right.
Like just working through the emotional, or is it really a physical shift that needs to happen, or is it a whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of looking at almost their unmet needs in the same moment, but not getting too overwhelmed by trying to figure out all of these pieces all at once. Just staying curious and in the moment is sort of your first big focus. That's
something
focus.
Something I took away was to make it that I think will help me seem less overwhelmed. I don't feel overwhelmed by this, but is that it's really just finding the one thing, even if it's this big. It might be this big, but it might be this big. The one thing that whoever you're with can handle making a choice about.
Yeah, and be okay with stopping there. Because
it's that little step is the right one. It doesn't all have to happen in one consultation, or it's going to be a journey.
Nice. Yeah, that's a big piece of it, is not trying to solve the whole thing. Is really is staying curious enough that you can find out what is that one place that they can hold and change, as opposed to, can we fix this situation? Because it's not going to fix in a one-time shot either.
No.
And then, I mean, the uses are pretty similar.
The what? The other side?
On the other side, the uses that you did, they're kind of similar, but they're also what your strengths are, not just your characteristics as a person during these interactions, but what tools you're choosing to use. So where did you put your strengths in this one? And, I see at the top PPA.
Yep, I chose that one.
Is that one of them? Okay, that's what I was thinking. Mm-hmm.
And that was last week, not just my reflecting now. I chose that one last week.
Oh, nice. So you chose it, and then in reality, you were like, actually, I was right. Nice.
Yeah, I didn't even realize it until I just looked. I also start off my person-centered approaches to all care plans and delivery. And I wrote a note that I'm always aware of the person, whether it's the person living with it or the person living with the person living with it.
Sure. And you luckily got some experience with that too this week. So
sure did.
And how did you find that shift in your focus? Because it can be really hard to shift from the person that you are caring with to these other stakeholders, becoming that person and sort of putting that person to the side for a minute and letting them be a stakeholder. How did that shift go for you when you were in the moment or the one-on-one with those individuals, especially with
family?
It sounds like you had a good connection.
Yeah, and with her husband too. He's the one that's been I actually witnessed this past week. I saw him go into sadness and acceptance. I witnessed it, the emotional, and I saw a physical shift.
Wow. What did that look like? And how did you respond to it in the moment?
I just was quiet with him.
Yeah.
And I think I said, I know this is hard.
Yeah.
I know that was the tone of, yeah.
He wasn't looking for an answer. He just needed you to be with him.
It's the reality finally. He said, but I'm supposed to save her.
Wow.
And his shift in that, you know.
So you were able to just.
That said, for what? I didn't say that, you know.
Yeah.
For what? How do you want her to live?
Right.
And that's what I supported was, we're talking about a quality of life. And there was a moment where there was a choice. Do we call 911 and send her to an emergency situation?
Right.
And we talked about, I said, let's just review what that experience will be for her.
So you were just the sounding board.
Is this really necessary?
Mm-hmm.
Is she in? We started having the conversation about what would qualify that kind of call.
Yeah, so looking again at those levels of annoying, risky, or dangerous.
Right.
Is this really a dangerous level behavior?
Yeah, I didn't put it that way, but that's exactly what it is.
That's where you were thinking. Right. Oh, cool. So
with the daughter and the husband, we all together, you know, and that was when he sort of
took it in.
Came to reality that I can't save her. But supporting the thing that I have so often with him, there are two pieces that that work with him for me to support him in saying, we're just finding a new normal now.
Right, right.
This is our new normal.
So helping him see that shift from who I was to who I am now.
Yes. Good. Nice. Oh, I love this stuff. I can bring this in.
Like a little dance.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah. This and him too. And also saying what she has, what we still have that we cling to is her moments to connect. She still can connect. She gets involved in conversation. It makes no sense at all, but she knows what she's saying or she's participating. She absolutely still has a sense of humor.
Nice.
She smiles. She gives hugs and kisses to people she loves.
So it sounds like, what you helped them see in this proactive cycle, even though you went through a few responsive cycles, however you could get through them to kind of bring the level down from danger to
crisis.
We can actually take in some information. He went through a couple more stages of the grief cycle, was able to make this one choice. What did he really decide? What did he select? Because it sounds like you got him to that select point.
Yes, we did.
Really select. Is it
selected
normal?
We went from what kind of from we're not calling, we made the choice not to call 911 unless she's like flopping on the floor screaming in agony.
Right.
And then we went a little deeper about what should we do, because there was no way we were getting her out of the house to go to a medical clinic. And do we want to? No.
Right. And not doing something isn't really a choice yet. That's just letting go of something. So then you offered, what was the alternative choice that you kind of offered him?
Well, we talked about when I made the connection with someone I know who's very involved in the palliative care world. I mean, she's a big deal and like works at Beatitudes, and she's big writing articles and doing research on palliative care and person-centered care in institutional settings. So we talked to her, and she gave us either a nursing service, or there's Mount Sinai Hospital has, it's called Visiting Doctors. Do you know about them?
No, but it makes sense.
It's basically you never have to leave your home. They send medical professionals, if warranted, a physician, if a nurse, to your home if you're having any troubles. And it was a 6-month wait, and we have an appointment next week.
Right. Wow. So it sounds like you went from, the bigger option was we need to get, you helped him explore and see that we need to have a medical professional involved, of course. But the two choices are, do we want to do a change in environment, going to the hospital and seeing a doctor there? Or are we just bringing someone with the medical knowledge into our current environment? Which one is going to work better? And you explored the environment almost as your guide.
Yeah, I didn't see it that way. Thank you. Yes.
Well, I mean, that's what it sounds like. You had this big choice. The choice was we need to get someone who's medically licensed in to make this decision. We can't make this decision. We kind of know what's going on, but at the same time, we do need someone in who's going to be able to help us.
Right.
So then the option was hospital or home.
Yeah. And we did adjust the home environment.
Options.
Yeah, we did I did a lot of actual care practices to adjust her experience of her day with her discomfort that she was in.
Right.
So we had to deal with some of that too.
Yeah, and those were secondary almost to this bigger issue of he really wanted this to happen now because it was unsafe. And you were able to sort of take him through that cycle. So let's kind of, it sounds like we've got some really good positive things happening. Which one of those uses were the ones that you felt like, this is the one that I want to improve within my next interactions, or this is my first focus?
I put on this assessments, not assumptions. The one I'm challenged with. Okay. That goes back to that piece of staying curious and in the moment, and not just taking a tiny few little bits of information going, aha.
Yeah, because it would have been really easy to, in this example, it would have been really easy to give him what would work, right? To say, I think we should have this woman come in and talk to us. But the danger in that would have been him not going through that grief cycle.
Yeah.
He got to a really new place. Whose decision was it to call in this woman that you knew about palliative care?
It was the daughter's idea, or I guess it came up in a conversation with the daughter because she's much further ahead than the husband. It's a different relationship.
And then
obviously,
was he excited and on board for that? Or was he still holding on to this, we need to go to the hospital piece?
I think, well, first off, when I was called early in the morning because the overnight care partner woke him up early in the morning saying she can't stand up and she has a fever.
There was a real
the hospital. And I said, whoa, I'm on my way.
Yeah.
If she's not completely unresponsive and in agony, I think it's okay to wait. And I use the cab ride to call the daughter and say, I just want you to know there's a crisis energy going on. Let me get there, calm it down, I did make an assessment about,
And you didn't assume, and you didn't just say, I think that this should happen. Let's do the hospital. And so.
Right. Well, I even said to him, I said, that was when the conversation came. I said, let's look at it. Right. Is it risky, annoying, or dangerous? I said, she's definitely in discomfort, but does it warrant putting her through what they're going to put her through?
You got it.
If we can try making her comfortable here, there are definitely some things we can do, some skills I have to help make her more comfortable, and let's see how it unfolds in the day. If we do the simplest things that are, Tylenol, let's try Tylenol.
Right.
Right. And then when I talked to the daughter and said I was on my way to just at least calm the situation there, she said, I've been talking to him about palliative care, and it came up. The big issue with him was that he thinks he couldn't get his brain wrapped around the idea that palliative care is not hospice care.
Right.
That this doesn't mean she's dying actively now.
Right.
I mean, she is. But to him, his perception is that this is about comfort care. This is about having somebody come to the house so we don't have to try to get her in a car.
And so by the end of all of this, does it feel like he has accepted that one choice, that one piece of information, that it's a new normal, but our biggest focus and his biggest focus, his biggest dream is that she's comfortable?
Yep.
So that's not where he was at the beginning of this interaction. And so you going through the cycle and getting him to see that actually it's all about comfort for your mom. We're not trying to do anything. What we're trying to do is make sure that she's as happy as she can be, as comfortable as she can be.
Right.
Great.
Right.
Well,
and of course, things would, when she felt a little better, that she would sit and eat with us. She could come to the table. She could eat with us. She could do some connecting.
Perfect. And that makes all the difference for him.
And actually a big piece too I found is that getting him involved, and it's always been this, if I can say to him, can you help me? Can you help me help her?
So you're using your PPA, and you again shifted back to this new person. You now have a new person, because if he's here, right?
Yeah.
And he stays here, you're not going to get her anywhere positively. So you've been able to shift him from here to here. He's not here yet. He's not ready to be here yet, but he's okay. He's neutral. He's going along with things. He's now listening and able to take in information. So that's huge. That's awesome, Catherine. That's a really exciting first step. And didn't even think really that you were using it this week. And let me pull out all my cards and make sure I have it.
Yeah.
But instead, actually, you were using it at a really pretty high level, looking at some responsive cycle. So we've got two goals. We've got that we want to stay curious, and that we want to use assessments and not assumptions. Because it can be really easy to say, well, it sounds like she needs some medication. Let's make sure that we're, filling that need. And then we kind of forget to focus on all of the other things that are happening outside of that. So what I'd like for us to do, we only just have a couple more minutes. For your actual cycle piece, it sounded like earlier you said the piece that you wanted to really practice would be the reflective piece, because it would allow you to listen with both ears. And
I was thinking it was, but now that you say it that way, I understand.
Yeah, because earlier you said, one of the hardest things with being curious is that I have a tendency to have one ear listening, but this side of my brain thinking. So if I'm focused solely on reflecting your words back, then I have no choice other than to listen to what you're saying.
Right, I see, yeah.
So I wonder if that might be our first focus for the cycle. How does that feel?
That sounds good.
Okay.
Can't hurt.
It can't hurt to try. So on the consultant's site, I'm just going to go ahead and share this with you so that you can see. On the consultant's site in the classroom training tools, can you see this here?
Yeah, I got to put my glasses on.
Let me see if I can.
Now I can. Oh, I didn't see that webinar recordings. I forgot.
Yeah, so it's tricky because it says classroom training documents, and then you've just got to scroll down. And there's these two webinars where Teepa takes two very different people through 6 pieces of the puzzle with the same person. So they're just role plays, but it can give you a sense. It might be really cool if you focus on times when she uses reflective language, and then times that she stays curious. When you find yourself listening and thinking, how does she get through those without offering a suggestion? Because that's where, you are really working to improve, is that staying curious and doing another assessment rather than assuming you know what the next step would be.
Yep.
So really focusing when you're listening to them to where does she and how does she stay curious? Even when I hear big, as a consultant, I'm, oh my gosh, this is it right here. I found the golden nugget that's going to fix this whole thing. How does she not do that? Because it is tough. It's tough not to just jump on the first thing that you hear.
Right.
And how are the two different outcomes based on the person that she's consulting with totally different? Because this first person you're listening to is going to come up with one solution to try out, whereas the second person comes up with something different. It's the same scenario. So
they're steering it. How does she allow them to steer the ship, basically?
You got it. You got it. And focusing on our 3 pieces are staying curious, using an assessment and not an assumption, and then that reflective language.
Stay curious. I know what these are. Using assessment. I'm writing it down. It helps me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Assessment, not assumption. And what was the third one you said?
And then you said you wanted to focus on the reflective language.
Reflective language. That's right. Reflective language. Okay.
Okay, so that gives you kind of a guide of where we probably just want to do that before our next call. You'll watch those webinars and then we'll talk through them a little bit. The next thing that we'll talk about on our next call is the scenarios from the notebook. We'll choose one scenario and you will be the consultant, and then I will play whatever role you'd like me to play, whatever's most common for you to deal with. So you don't have to choose now if you haven't chosen already.
I haven't.
So if there's one that stands out to you, I'll email you our notes from our call today, and we can set up a time now if you have time. If not, then we can set it up via email.
Let's do it right now.
Okay. But I'll email you our notes, and then I'll email you what to prepare for next time as well.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So next week I have pretty open. Is that too soon? Do you need a little bit?
No, I'd love to do it. I'm off on. I generally have Thursdays and Fridays are my days that I do this stuff. Perfect. So it doesn't matter to me, either one.
Would you like to do Thursday at 10 again?
Sure.
Okay. The next call will be closer to an hour, just because it'll take us a little more time to go through the scenarios.
Let me ask, actually, could we do it either a little later in the day? Because I'd like the time to just get in the morning to get
to wake up,
get back in the mode and reflect on my notes, because I'm probably going to have to do this, this weekend.
No
so
problem.
Give me a little time to immerse myself.
The only time that I can't do is 12:30 to 1:30. So any other time that day would work for me.
12:30 to 1:30. 11 or 11:30, would that be okay?
Yeah. Which do you prefer?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Do you like your back to barracks, or you want
let's do 11:30 so that you have the most of the morning that you can.
All right. Terrific.
Okay. And we'll do I'll make sure we get a scenario from you. And even if you decide on the next call, that's okay too.
All right.
So I will shoot you an email with that and the Zoom request, and we'll be good to go.
All right. I'll write a note to myself on the calendar. Okay, good.
All right.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.